Okay, let's talk about who should be the Raiders' next coach, or at least what that list should look like. And again, this list varies depending on who's in charge of the team. But there's a million names out there. People in the stream, I'm getting DMs like, "What about Joe Brady?" You mentioned Doug Peterson the other day when we were talking. Uh, I think, if we go by Mark Davis's MO in recent history, his MO, we don't have a long history of him, but he goes with people he knows. His circle's not very big. I would imagine he has some knowledge of David Shaw, some relationship. Stanford's not exactly rolling right now. And I don't know if I'm David, even though his NFL stock is not as high as it's been in the past. I don't know that this is the job I would leave for. And I wonder if David would want to leave Stanford at a time when they're struggling. But I mean, Sean McVay's whoever, Nanny, Jack Del Rio, come back round 2.
Well, I think the number one question you have to ask is Mark Davis. If he keeps Mayock, then I think that brings into a small list of people. If he fires Mayock, then I think a lot's on the table. Do they try to hire a football czar and let him make the pick? Because if they wanted David Shaw, he's picking the GM. If they wanted to get, Joe Brady might have options, right? To me, Mayock said yesterday I would put Mayock yesterday, even as the general manager, you don't sign up for that, what you just had to experience yesterday. Like I would say most places, if that happened.
So Mayock spoke, Carr spoke.
Darren Waller spoke and Crosby spoke.
Got it. Yeah, and which one of those 4 is the owner?
I don't think any of them have any equity in the franchise.
Man.
So Mayock said that he called Rich Piscaccia. It's a tough name to say. I watched him talk a little bit too. Mayock said that he's known this guy for 30 plus years, and he has said he has recommended him to a handful over the years of general managers and athletic directors that he's met in his previous job. And he called him yesterday. And I get, heat of the moment, you're trying to say the right things, but I don't think he's making this up. He called him the best leader of men he's ever been around. Like, the way he talked, and again, in that situation, you're probably going to go a little hyperbolic to just really sell the situation. But also, I've heard Mike talk, when he goes kind of adamant, he's known this guy for a while, and this guy's well thought of. He's worked for a lot of different people. Is that, what if this goes well? What if they went 10-7 and made the playoffs? Could you just keep these two another year?
John, if he went 10-7 and made the playoffs, he would get the job.
Rich.
I would think so.
And Mayock State.
Mark, I don't think Mark, and I don't blame him to a degree. He doesn't want to do a coaching search and sign somebody to a 6-year, $60 million contract.
No. Well, that's what Joe Brady, even if you got Joe Brady, he's still costing 5 years, $45 million. Well,
John, at minimum, you're bidding against LSU. Forget about other NFL teams.
100%. He'd have Brian Daboll is going to have several options, right, at the OC at Buffalo. Lincoln Riley, he might not even take your phone call. David Shaw has a job that pays him. What's David Shaw make at Stanford? $6-7 million, and everything's free. So it's he's well compensated. It's not a position, given what they just had to do to get John. You're right. I think in a perfect world, Mark Davis would sell his soul if you just make the 7th wild card, and we'll just bring everybody back, right? But to that, if you're Derek, do you want to? Is that what you want? Do you feel comfortable in this? Is that what you want?
I think he wants to be the guy that takes the Raiders back to greatness.
Well, there is a pressure. To me, what's going to be fascinating is that I guess Jack was a defensive coach, and really the first defense, because Al Davis was notorious for only hiring offensive coaches, right? Because he was an offensive guy at heart. He was big on offense. I guess he was a defensive guy, so he always wanted an offensive guy. Is that if you're going to hire, losing Gruden is a pretty big hole. Olsen, the offensive coordinator, last time he called play was 2014 for the Raiders, and it didn't go that well. Now, granted, that was Derek's rookie year, but just what happens here? So let's say they're productive, but the offense gets thrown off a little bit. There are just so many variables here. I don't know. I think it's a desirable job in theory if Derek was under contract long term, but he's clearly not. And who knows? Is there some toxicity with this place? Is the team a little overrated? Every single guy every single guy on this roster, every single one, handpicked by John Gruden. Every single one. There is not one player on this roster. That can't be said for Mike Mayock. There are players on this roster. All you have to see is like Paul Gutierrez tweeted yesterday. Before it was 51-49 Gruden. So you mean he got to make every choice on every single player.
Yeah.
Now it's 51-49 Mayock. So yeah, now he gets to pick the roster. Which is, I get what they're trying to do, but come on, guys. Like the Haber Middlecoff podcast is 50-50, right? When something is 51-49, isn't that the same thing? They're not on a revenue split. It's not like, well, $100,000, Gruden got 51 and Mike got 49. That's not how it works. Those percentages only matter when it comes to money. Well, their money was fixed. Picking the fucking draft, well, yeah, I'm the 51, so I want this guy. You don't get that. Like, it's not that complicated, right? So now, Mike, there are going to be players, and Mike has hammered this home, like, we were a coach-run organization. He's not going to like some of these players. What was the first thing that Chip did when he forced Howie out and then flip-flopped when Howie came back? Got rid of some of Chip's guys. It's human nature. Gruden did the same thing.
Why Kiko Alonso was like traded 6 times or something?
I think this is a very, very complicated situation with an owner who's very over his head. And the more I've thought about it, I don't know if it's as desirable as I originally did a couple days ago.
John, I think the fact that Mark Davis, this alone, did not speak in one of the most necessary times for a leader to speak is a red flag for whoever they hire next as their head coach. Jerry Jones spoke. Jerry Jones did an interview, was asked about it. He's the owner of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
If ever there was a time to have a moment, that was it. Now, if I were in charge of PR, I'm not sure I would have recommended Mark speak either, especially if you might be pissed and say something he shouldn't say or that you wouldn't want him to say.
Well,
Sometimes
he's clearly mad. He's clearly mad because he told Gutierrez, ask the NFL. He's pissed.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Cole tweeted, there are people around Mark Davis that think the NFL is trying to take the team from him and have told him that. You and I have been talking about this for years, that the NFL would love to find a way to take the team from him, which is in some weird way why I kind of root for him to make it work. Because it's like guys like him don't get NFL teams, right? Most of these guys have millions of dollars from a million other places.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I'm rooting for the rebel.
Wait, you don't think even the kids, the Clark Hunts and the Jonathan Crafts, went to Chico State?
No, and I think Jonathan's probably in charge of some soccer initiative or something.
I'd imagine Parag has more on his plate than Mark.
Yes.
Managing different financial businesses.
Yes. So that would be a red flag to me. Like,
what is a red flag? Mark Davis is one of the biggest red flags in the league.
It's an opportunity to take advantage, which I don't necessarily want to be in a business situation where I'm taking advantage of somebody, because I want it to be a team that works if I'm a head coach. So yeah, I can get a 10-year contract. Would you call that taking advantage of the situation, or would you call that just supply and demand? We could debate that. But that's what happened the last time they hired a coach.
Florio,
if you offered me a 10-year, $100 million contract, John, I'd take it. But I
read Florio had a post today that there are rumors and people that thought that the true guarantees of the contract were a little like it was almost like an NFL player contract. It was a $100 million contract, but the last 4 or 5 years were they truly guaranteed? Were they incentive based? I think that's up for debate. It's the hard part. No one truly knows. But, clearly everyone around the league thought we're pretty confident John Gruden was pretty safe for a long period of time if emails didn't come up, right?
Yeah.
No one was putting him on, like he wasn't getting fired if they won 7 games this year.
No. And it felt like unless the relationship changed, it was going to take a lot for him to get fired. Do you think, I just did a little research here while we're talking, because a few people have mentioned Kellen Moore. Has a player ever been coached by has a player ever had a head coach who he beat in college in a game when that coach was a player? Like Derek Carr did Kellen Moore in 2011, Fresno State, Boise State?
Derek Carr beat Kellen Moore?
Fresno State.
Do you have the box score on that?
I'm sorry. Oh, the box score I misread it. I should have known when it said 57-7 who won.
I don't think Derek ever beat Kellen Moore.
Well, no, he only played him once, and it was 57 to. He was a redshirt freshman.
The Boise State Broncos scored 57 points.
That's right, John. They were high stepping into the end zone to make it 49-0 at this highlight reel I'm watching in the third quarter.
Yeah.
So they lit up.
When my first year,
But the question stands: has a guy ever played against a guy in college and then been coached by him in the NFL?
I love Coach Hill, but the Broncos had some serious ownage over Coach Hill dogs, right? There weren't many wins. Well, I don't think it was still DeRuyter they got him.
No, they got him with Paul Williams. They got him at home. It was like
05, 06
10-7, or I mean, it was some low-scoring game. Paul Williams had the only touchdown down the sideline.
Is that a Hawkins or a Peterson team? Might have been Peterson's first
I
year.
think it was a Peterson team.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but
Tough team to beat. It's not. No, there's no fault in losing to Alabama, right?
apologize for no wins, John. I don't care who was coaching the game.
no. They might have had some injuries, but whatever.
Any other? Doug Peterson? What would you say to that? That was your idea.
I think 100% he would be just bring some stability of a guy who's been in a crazy fucking market in a crazy time. Who did he take? I mean, he replaced Chip Kelly, right? It was a pretty chaotic time. And Doug's a pretty even keel. Like, even when it started getting weird in Philly, for the most part, I think Doug's never lost it. Or, I mean, there were a couple times when, remember the one guy snuck in, the one fan, and asked him a question, and Doug was like, "Who's that guy?"
Oh, yeah.
And they removed him. It was a fan that snuck into the press conference. That was pretty funny.
That was
But for a guy who's only been a head coach for 5 years, and he did accomplish a lot, obviously winning the Super Bowl and winning another playoff game. I just mean his temperament and just being able to handle a tough situation. He'd be as equipped as any, right? Backup quarterback for 15 plus years. He's the type guy. Like, I think they would get credit for hiring him. And if you're Derek, then to me I would take some time to, if Doug wants to work with you, that to me could save Derek's career in terms of like not asking for a trade or whatever.
Yeah.
If you told me that, like, I
Look,
could see
Raiders
Derek and Doug getting along, I guess
the Raiders need Derek Carr more than Derek Carr needs the Raiders. That's what we're trying to say here.
I had someone DM me, and it's a big Raider fan, and it was like, I don't think people realize that if this ends poorly this year, or let's say they kind of just stumble, right, which is very conceivable and understandable, it just kind of falls apart, and they go like, they have enough talent. Maybe they go like 7-10, but they lose some games that maybe they would have won if this never happens. And Derek is just not on the team next year. The likelihood that it's someone way shittier than him is extremely high.
95%.
Could you argue like 98.8%?
Well, I'd be like, wait a second, Aaron, just to be clear, this is on your list? Russ?
Yeah, your list? To me, they ain't showing up. It's more likely that it's, Peterman or Mariota's like a bridge quarterback to use some of their picks to draft a guy the following year, right? To just kind of start over. And Derek's in who knows where, Philly, or if I'm him, I would refuse to go to the football team. I ain't going there either. I ain't leaving the Raiders to go to the football team. Even with Rivera. Can't
not going to Houston.
No, well, yeah. Can't go to Houston, especially my brother's been there. No.
Miami.
That to me.
I prefer West Coast warm.
Yeah, but I could see Miami, Flores. What about Philly?
Everyone. Yeah. We sure Tennessee's set at quarterback? We're sure about that?
Yeah, I mean, what if I'd go Vrabel, John Robinson, Indy.
Matt in the stream says Spencer Rattler in the 7th round.